For decades, the world believed it understood Tina Turner, the voice that filled arenas, the survivor who escaped abuse and rewrote her destiny, the queen of rock and roll who seemed unbreakable under the spotlight. But behind the power, the wigs, and the thunderous applause lived a far quieter truth, one shaped by abandonment, fear, and a lifetime spent learning how to endure pain in silence. After her death, the media replayed the victories, but a different story surfaced, spoken softly by the man who knew her when fame no longer mattered. And that story raises a haunting question few fans have ever considered. What if Tina Turner's most defining chapter didn't happen on stage at all, but in the shadows, long before the world was watching? Tina Turner's childhood was not a beginning, it was a survival test. Tina Turner did not enter life with dreams of fame or music. She entered it already, learning how to endure. Born Anna Mae Bullock, her earliest memories were not of safety, but instability. Her parents' marriage was volatile, emotionally charged, and often frightening. Home was unpredictable, and for a child, unpredictability teaches one lesson very quickly. Stay alert, stay quiet, don't expect protection. When Tina was just 11 years old, her mother fled the household without warning, escaping an abusive marriage but leaving her daughter behind. That moment planted a wound that never fully healed. Soon after, her father remarried and emotionally disappeared as well, sending Tina to live with strict, religious grandparents. There was discipline, routine, and church but little affection. Tina later admitted she never remembered feeling truly wanted. Those years shaped her internal compass. Love became something conditional, pain became familiar, silence became survival. Long before the world celebrated her strength, Tina learned how to function inside emotional abandonment. And that early conditioning would later make certain choices feel normal choices that outsiders would struggle to understand. Ike Turner entered Tina Turner's life as a doorway and quietly became a cage. When Tina Turner met Ike Turner in a St. Louis nightclub, it felt less like romance and more like rescue. Ike was already established, already respected in the rhythm and blues world, already someone who knew how the industry worked. For a young woman who had grown up feeling disposable and unseen, his attention felt like validation. He gave her a microphone, a stage, and a future that suddenly seemed possible. But what began as opportunity slowly hardened into control. Ike renamed her Tina Turner and then trademarked the name, ensuring that her identity, both artistic and personal, was legally tied to him. From the very start, power was uneven. On stage, Tina was explosive, magnetic, impossible to ignore. Offstage, Ike dictated everything: finances, schedules, creative choices, even her movements. What the public interpreted as partnership was, in reality, ownership. Tina did not yet see this as danger. Her childhood had taught her that love often came with pain, and loyalty meant endurance. The line between devotion and domination blurred easily. As the crowds grew louder and the success more visible, Tina's private autonomy quietly disappeared. Fame was rising, but so was the cost. Behind closed doors, Ike Turner's abuse defined Tina Turner's daily reality. As the Ike and Tina Turner review became one of the most electrifying live acts in America, a brutal contradiction defined Tina Turner's life. On stage, she radiated power, commanding, fearless, unstoppable. Off stage, she lived under constant threat. Ike Turner's abuse was not occasional or impulsive. It was systematic and sustained. Tina later described violent beatings, emotional humiliation, sexual coercion, and relentless psychological control. Every aspect of her life was monitored. Fear became routine, yet each night she transformed that fear into performance, delivering shows that left audiences breathless. The industry applauded her stamina while ignoring her suffering. In the 1960s and 1970s, domestic violence was rarely discussed openly and almost never believed when the abuser was successful and the victim was expected to be strong. Tina internalized that silence. Bruises were concealed beneath makeup and costumes. Tears were swallowed backstage. The applause became a mask, hiding a life lived in survival mode. Success did not protect her, it trapped her further. The world celebrated a powerhouse, unaware that the woman they idolized was fighting for her safety every single day. Tina Turner's escape from Ike Turner wasn't glorious, it was terrifying. When Tina Turner finally left Ike Turner in 1976, there were no triumphant headlines and no safety net waiting for her. She fled during a tour, slipping away with no money, no legal leverage, and no assurance she would survive independently. She slept on friends' couches, hid in hotel rooms, and relied on food stamps to eat. Tina agreed to grueling, low-paying performances just to stay afloat, while paying off debts that weren't even hers. Many in the music industry quietly assumed she was finished, another woman broken by scandal and age. At 40, with no husband, no backing, and a reputation shaped by years of abuse, she was considered a liability. But for the first time in her life, fear came paired with freedom. Tina no longer woke up anticipating violence. She no longer lived under constant surveillance. The price of independence was humiliation, exhaustion, and uncertainty, but it was also dignity. This was not a dramatic escape. It was a slow, painful rebuilding from nothing. And yet, it marked the first chapter of a life lived on her own terms. Private Dancer didn't just revive Tina Turner, it exposed the industry. When Tina Turner released Private Dancer in 1984, it wasn't framed as a comeback. In truth, the industry didn't even believe she deserved one. At 44, Tina was considered too old, too scarred, too difficult to market in a business obsessed with youth and control. But Private Dancer shattered those assumptions in real time. This was not the sound of desperation. It was the voice of authority. Songs like What's Love Got to Do With It carried emotional distance, wisdom, and restraint qualities that only someone who had survived deep trauma could deliver convincingly. Tina wasn't asking for relevance. She was claiming it. The album's success forced the industry to confront its own ageism and misogyny. Stadiums filled again. But this time, Tina controlled her image, her sound, and her schedule. She didn't need permission. For older audiences, especially women, her rise felt validating. It said, survival doesn't disqualify you from greatness, it prepares you for it. Private Dancer didn't just relaunch Tina Turner's career, it exposed how wrong the industry had been to underestimate her. Erwin Bach represented the kind of love Tina Turner never knew existed. When Tina Turner met Erwin Bach in 1985, she was not searching for romance, she was protecting herself. Decades of abuse had taught her that love often came with control, jealousy, and punishment. Erwin offered none of that. He didn't try to manage her career, rewrite her identity, or compete with her past. Instead, he showed up consistently, quietly, without agenda. Their relationship grew slowly, built on trust rather than intensity. For Tina, this was unfamiliar territory. There was no fear to manage, no mood to anticipate. Over time, that emotional safety became transformative. The most powerful proof came years later, when Tina's health deteriorated. In 2017, Erwin donated one of his kidneys to save her life. There were no cameras, no headlines, no performance. It was a private act of devotion that required nothing in return. For a woman who had spent her life giving her voice, her strength, her survival, this kind of love was healing precisely because it was ordinary. With Erwin, Tina finally experienced partnership without fear. Tina Turner's legacy is about endurance, not noise. Tina Turner's legacy is often measured in decibels, her voice, her energy, her presence. But her true impact lives in something quieter. She changed how the world talks about domestic abuse by refusing to stay silent once she escaped it. She challenged ageism by refusing to disappear. And she demonstrated that reinvention is not about reinvention of image, but reinvention of self. Through Buddhism, Tina reclaimed control over her inner life, learning that strength did not have to be loud to be real. When she passed away in 2023, the world mourned a legend. But those who truly understood her story recognized something deeper. Tina Turner was not defined by what she endured, but by what she refused to surrender: her autonomy, her dignity, her will to survive. Her voice may no longer fill arenas, but her story continues to resonate with anyone who has ever had to start over later in life. That is her true legacy, not spectacle, but endurance. Tina Turner's life is often remembered through spectacle: the roar of her voice, the power of her movement, the undeniable electricity she brought to every stage she stepped on. But when the music fades, what remains is something far more enduring. Her story is not simply about fame or survival. It is about endurance shaped by choice. Tina Turner showed the world that strength is not something you are born with. It is something you build, often in silence, often when no one is watching. Her life teaches a lesson many people only understand later in life. Escaping trauma does not automatically heal it. Healing is a long, deliberate process that requires courage long after the danger has passed. Tina did not become free the moment she left abuse. She became free by rebuilding herself from nothing, by rejecting the narratives others placed on her, and by refusing to let her past define the rest of her life. For viewers who have lived through their own losses, betrayals, or reinventions, Her journey feels painfully familiar and deeply validating. Tina Turner also challenged one of America's most persistent myths, that relevance belongs to the young. Her greatest success came not at the beginning of her career, but after she was told she was finished. Private Dancer was not just a commercial triumph, it was a cultural correction. It reminded the world that experience carries authority, that resilience creates depth, and that aging does not erase value, it reveals it. For anyone who has ever felt dismissed because of age, circumstance, or history, Tina's legacy speaks directly to that fear. Perhaps most importantly, Tina's later years redefine what victory looks like. Her greatest love story did not involve spectacle or chaos. It involved safety, trust, quiet devotion. After a lifetime of control and fear, she chose peace. That choice may be her most radical act of all. Fame could not save her. Applause could not heal her. But dignity, autonomy, and compassion did. Tina Turner did not just leave behind music. She left behind permission. Permission to leave what hurts. Permission to start over later than expected. Permission to choose peace over performance. Her legacy lives on, not only in songs, but in the countless lives she reshaped by telling the truth when silence was easier. If Tina Turner's story resonated with you, take a moment to like this video. It helps keep these stories alive. Share your thoughts in the comments below. What part of her journey stayed with you the most? And don't forget to subscribe for more deep, untold stories behind the legends who shaped American culture. If you're ready to continue, the next story is waiting for you on screen right now.